You know, there are days when you feel like bashing your head on a desk and saying, what the hell is wrong with people in general? Well, this, my friends, is one of those days. The European Union, or more specifically the EU member countries, European Parliament, and the European Commission have reached a deal to effectively ban the sale of gas-powered cars by the year 2035. Now, this is following in the footsteps of the UK, which is trying to do the same thing by 2040. And of course, here in the United States, you've got California, where the leadership there in that state is seeking to end gas-powered cars because, you know, climate change, warming, cooling, whatever. So the question should be asked, does consequences mean anything to these people? The obvious, enormous adverse side effects of doing this to the general population at large should be able to be seen from a mile away. Well, my friends, welcome to the Topical Umbrella. I am Adrian from the TrialSite News YouTube channel. Welcome to my show, the place where we cover everything. And today, we're talking about the EU and electric vehicle mandates. So, the European Union has made a lot of missteps and mistakes over the years. But this might just well prove to be one of the greater disastrous decisions that will have been made in the 21st century here in the West. Now, I know it's just a feeling, but tell me if I'm wrong, that it feels like cultural rot and backwards thinking when it comes to innovation to expand the human species in a positive manner seems to be the norm and the goal of many of the elite today. Where once human advancement, particularly the focus on expanding human freedoms and enjoyment of life, was the goal, or at least it seemed to be the goal, now instead, all of this seems to be evaporating around us. You've got global lockdowns, forced mandates thanks to the virus, and now the European Union taking steps to saddle its member states and their citizens with inferior transportation options, meaning the electric vehicle. You've got limited mileage interspersed with long recharge times. This makes for a greatly reduced level of mobility for the average person in Western society. There seems to be a global focus on mass transportation and limiting travel technology. That seems to be the wet dream of every bureaucrat these days, which then leads us to our topic for today. Jan Huytema, the lead negotiator for the European Parliament, talked about the new state law that dictates that by 2035, car makers must cut their CO2 emissions by 100%, making it impossible to sell cars that are gas-powered. He called the deal good news and said that this deal is good news for car drivers. How? Don't know. And that new zero-emission cars will become cheaper, making them more affordable and more accessible to everyone. Again, how? Does he have specifics? Nope. It'll just happen, folks. Now, perhaps maybe there'll be massive government subsidies or price controls. No one knows yet. Well, I guess we're going to find out. And in any case, the move is on. And you better hope that the EU can keep up with this massive increase in energy demand. But of course, that begs the question, can they? I mean, in case you didn't know, right now you have an energy crisis in Europe. Just earlier this year, thanks to the war in Ukraine, we saw a rush to acquire coal for heating purposes in places like Germany. Do any of these climate change believers know how they're going to acquire the massive amounts of new energy that will be required to handle this huge influx of electric cars? As of the second quarter of 2022, the European Union is currently sitting at a paltry 9.9% of passenger car registrations as electric vehicles. That means you have over 90% of vehicles that have yet to go electric. But you see, not to worry, my friends. Why, just this year, a study just happened to come about by EY Eura Electric, which represents the power sector in 32 European countries. And according to their findings, everything will be just fine. All it will take, according to their study, is timely planning of charging infrastructure to prevent overloading the grid. And of course, an implementation of charging tariffs during peak hours. Need your power to charge a vehicle during the wrong time of day or night? Well, get ready to bend over and grab the ankles to your fearless leaders. And of course, this doesn't even account for once electric vehicles reach 50% in urban distribution networks, uncontrolled charging could lead to voltage deviations that could affect the quality of the power supply. Would it surprise anyone if in the near future, in the UK, the European Union, and places like California, that you could find yourself being restricted on when you're allowed to charge your vehicle? It sounds crazy, right? But yet, that seems a reality that may be on the horizon. And this is all in the name of climate religion. We're moving to a world where the ability to travel at will could very well become restricted. Or once there was freedom to go wherever you wanted to, was something that most average citizens could achieve, may very well be replaced with Stalin-esque restrictions on where you can go, and more importantly, when. It honestly feels like Western society is taking huge steps backwards, and all in the name of saving the planet, don't you know? And this, my friends, doesn't even deal with the issues of current electric vehicle battery production. Right now, China manufactures 80% of the world's EV batteries. Now, to be fair, European countries like Germany are expected to significantly expand production capacities themselves. And they better, because China is not a friend to the West. Do we really want to be at mercy of the Chinese government right now? I, for one, do not. No thank you. Now, of course, while all of this is happening, and thanks to the war going on in Ukraine, European leaders have been making moves in Africa's capital cities, looking, it seems, to create new gas investments over there. According to an article in the New York Times, there has been a flurry of overtures to African capitals to create new energy deals. Moves made to work, quote, together with countries where there is the possibility of developing new gas fields, while of course keeping pledges to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Don't worry, average citizen, it'll be just fine. Now, in the article from the New York Times, they wrote that, quote, African leaders lamented that it had taken a war thousands of miles away in Ukraine to give bargaining power on energy deals, and they described what they saw as a double standard. Europe, after all, used not just natural gas, but far evil and more dirty fuels like coal for hundreds of years to drive an age of empire building and industrialization, don't you know? And what was their main complaint? Well, less developed nations should be free to burn more gas in coming years, despite the, quote, climate crisis and the need for the world to cut back on fossil fuels because their citizens deserve higher standards of living and greater access to reliable electricity and other basics. But European and international leaders have made it far too costly, Africa's leaders say. Now, the future of energy in Western societies may soon resemble California or worse, where brownouts and threats of massive power outages are now becoming quite common. It seems like madness that people are willing to accept this degradation of their standards of living, all to stave off fears of overpopulation and, of course, the evil climate change, or was it global warming or global cooling, or what does it matter? And so here we are, my friends. The UK is set to force the change to electric vehicles by 2040, the EU by 2035, and of course the folks in California doing their part to take on the gas-powered vehicles by 2035 themselves. Perhaps then it really isn't about fixing the climate crisis, but instead about making it easier to control the masses by controlling how we travel. And when? Time, of course, will tell. And that, my friends, will bring this episode to a close. As always, thank you so much for being with me here today. From the Topical umbrella, I am Adrian, and I will see you all next time.